Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
Wednesday, and all of our guests today brought to you by our title sponsor, Able Auctions, ableauctions.ca. Justin Bourne is going to join us now, co-host of The Real Kipper and Bourne on Sportsnet 590 The Fan in Toronto, also NHL television coverage on Sportsnet, author of the book Down and Back. Justin joins us now to talk some hockey, to talk NHL. Justin, thanks for doing this, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, guys.
No problem. I believe the first time we've had a chance to talk to you about the Canucks and their success, they defeat the Blackhawks 4-2 last night in Chicago. They're leading the overall standings 12-1-3 in their last 16 games. What's impressed you most about what the Vancouver Hockey Club is up to?
You know, I guess what's impressed me most is fulfilling potential. You know, I was on, some Vancouver radio over the past couple of years, and when it would come up, like what's wrong with this team, I was a little bit stumped because I was like, look, like the hardest thing to get are number one center, number one D, and a number one goalie, and they are a lock at all three positions. I like some of their depth, and so you kind of stand there and go, I don't know, like maybe it's coaching, maybe some depth guys would help, but I guess like I have seen a pretty good team here. I didn't think they'd be this good, but I'll give a lot of love to Rick Tocchet for getting the most out of the guys and really pushing them beyond, I think, what were even reasonable expectations.
From what you know, Justin, what does he do well as a head coach?
I just think is no bluffing. I've actually, as I get older, and I've been around hockey my whole life, my conclusion is that this stuff is not rocket science. There's not going to be some, I know people thought in Toronto Kyle Dubas might be this, but like some hyper genius coach with some technical skills or, that comes in and reinvents the way the game is played. There may be different systems, but the most important part of coaching is getting the most out of your guys. And look at some of the guys who do that well. Tocchet is one of those guys. Craig Berube did it really well in St. Louis until it didn't. Doesn't work forever maybe to hold guys' feet to the fire, but John Tortorella's Philadelphia Flyers are having a pretty good year. I don't always believe, yelling is the right way, but I do believe being honest and forthright is the best way to communicate, and these guys are all pretty direct in their approach.
Okay, so things going very well for Rick Tocchet, going very well for the Canucks, but there's always room for improvement, Justin. Can Phil Kessel help the Vancouver Canucks?
I know everyone's excited. The name Phil Kessel is awesome. He could shoot it in the net from anywhere on the ice if he gets a touch. It depends kind of what your aspirations are, right? Like you saw in Vegas last year down the stretch, he's not in a lot of the games because they wanted guys who on the fourth line who go get the puck and hit and do other things than what Kessel does. Now, someone's got to give you some surprise depth scoring, and he's going to work hard, and he's a smart player, and he does lots of things well. So, I'm not saying he can't have great moments, but I am not convinced that, the Canucks with Phil Kessel are better than the Canucks with a depth player who is more inclined to just get in and bang and do those sort of things. But you never know. Great players tend to have one last gasp. We'll find out if Phil has one.
Justin, the big story in Toronto and around the NHL, Morgan Rielly, 5-game suspension. Your thoughts on what he did and the suspension?
Well, my thoughts on what he did are that he had to do something. That's I think it's not even. I've heard people talk about like the hockey code, this had something to do with the code. It's like it's a direct functionality of just like interpreting social cues. That guy said to your team, F you, in front of 20,000 people on Hockey Night in Canada. And if you're the type of team in a physical sport that just rolls over and goes, oh, well, I don't think it's great. And the Leafs have been that. So I think they were desperate to have someone stand up and say, don't do that. Don't talk to us like that in that moment. So he had to do something. Certainly would have rather seen him, throw a glove on punch or a bear hug or whatever you think. But so anyway, I'm of the camp that, I'm a former hockey player. He had to do something. The suspension to me, it seems like too much. Morgan Rielly got his first penalty minutes in game 41 this year. He has not just no history, like he's earned Lady Byng votes and was the front runner at this point. It is wildly out of character. You look at a guy like David Perron, whose character is a much more greasy player. He got 6 games for his cross-check on a guy who wasn't the right guy, wasn't paying attention, clean to the head, not deflected, injury on the play. It didn't add up to me in the scope of what typical suspensions are.
So let's go back to the slap shot. I mean, a lot of people saying, oh, he just put the puck into an empty net. But he surely must have thought, Justin, by doing it that way, there was going to be some sort of reaction. These two teams hate each other. It was the Battle of Ontario. Like, what was he thinking?
Well, first off, I don't even hate that he did it. Like, if I was a Senators fan or on his team, I like the idea of going down and sticking it to the other team and saying, yeah, maybe we're in last place, but, we got you tonight. It is Saturday. You're in our building. Like, take that to the 60%, Leafs fans who are in attendance tonight. I don't hate that he did it, but yeah, when you do it, you have to anticipate that the other side's not going to go, well, okay, you got us, good one. You have to anticipate someone's coming for you. You better get your hands up. It's like he anticipated they were going to file a legal complaint and they were going to hash out in court. Like, it's hockey. You did something directly to a team that is disrespectful. So it's not the code. You disrespected another grown person. You're going to have that conversation and stand up for yourself. And for whatever reason, he wasn't prepared to do that.
Justin, 6 assists for Connor McDavid versus Detroit. He's now 3rd in NHL points. Does he impress you more as a goal scorer or a playmaker?
Well, I think what impresses me most is that we know he can be the goal scorer if he so chooses. Like, it was Matthews scored 60 and Leon was talking to him in the offseason, like, you should show people that you have that in your bag. And he went out and scored 64 times. And then instead of being like, that's who I am now, he's gone back to just trying to create the most offense for his team possible. And I think he's most natural at it as a disher, as a guy who sets up his teammates and makes people better. So I would say I'm more impressed at his raw ability to make passes, but I'm baffled that it's just a choice he can make. If he chooses to toggle the goal scorer, he has that ability too.
Okay, Justin, we talked about celebrating, somewhat of a celebration with Ridley Gregg in Ottawa the other night, and we know what it resulted in. Jake Walman in Detroit does the gritty celebration. He's been doing it for a while now. They come into Vancouver on Thursday, the Red Wings, for a rematch. And some people saying, hey, what Morgan Rielly did, that's just fine. And if Walman does that again for Detroit in Vancouver, the Canucks have to do something. Do you have a problem with that celebration?
I don't have a problem with the celebration. Like, that to me is about him and his team, right? Like, he's having fun with the boys. They're celebrating a walk-off win that just happened. Like, to me, it's very different because it's about Detroit, whereas the Gregg thing was about Toronto. That was about FU to them and not about celebrating with his team. So to me, they're different statements that the players are making. Now, I don't think it's beyond an NHL team to be like, don't try to show us up. Don't have too much fun on our behalf. We're not the punchline guys here. So I wouldn't say it's beyond an NHL team to say they don't like it, but we're supposed to be encouraging of fun and in the game and celebrations, and the fans love it. And it was, as I said, it was a walk-off moment where you just won the game, so you can excuse it a little bit more. So the Walman thing doesn't bother me, and to me, they're different categories.
You're in Toronto, Justin, so let me ask you about a Canuck player, maybe one of the few negative parts of this season. Ilya Mikheyev has got 0 goals in 22 games. Of course, he played with the Leafs. We know about the knee problems. Any theories as to why things haven't worked out for him here? So far, anyway.
Yeah, it's funny because he can really square the puck off. He's with those hands of his. He's not a calm player with the hockey puck, but what he is a guy who skates. He's fast and he's long and he's rangy and he gets in on the forecheck. And, he's the type of guy who in theory should get to the dangerous areas and pucks should just find him. He should be able to bat in rebounds and tip home pucks. And when you score like that, you're kind of at the mercy of luck a little bit. So I could see him having an unlucky stretch, but I don't think it's just been that, obviously, here in Vancouver. The confidence starts to go a little bit too, and you can see that your coach doesn't have you as one of the the premier guys that's going to be, getting opportunities. I can see him feeling not as good as he has in the past, but he just needs to revert. I've seen some talking quotes. He needs to get back on the forecheck. He needs to do what he does best because he can be effective even when he doesn't score. Like if he just goes and turns the puck over and finishes checks and, keeps his team on the right end of the ice, he's really good at that. So I think a coach is happy to put you on the ice if you do those things. It's just a matter of don't start sniffing out goals and worrying about that's how you're being judged. Just do the things you do well. The other stuff should come for him.
Trade deadline quickly, Justin. We know your general manager absolutely loves Chris Tanev. He's looking at other D as well. Is that the number one priority at the deadline, maybe to add a defenseman in Toronto?
Yeah, and that's not going to cut it either. The Leafs are a flawed team that they probably need 2D and a forward, depending how you feel about their goalie. They're a lot of pieces away from being where the Canucks are at, which is crazy to say, 5 months into the season. But just feels like, with injuries and stuff, you start to see how thin they really are. They have Timothy Liljegren on their top pair. Giordano is not getting any younger. Legason is not a consistent NHLer, and these guys are all in their lineup right now. So yeah, they definitely need some bodies. Last night against the Blues, they got a really good win with some of their secondary players playing well. So that should have been encouraging for them. But no, Tree Living has said he likes to tweak, not change a team at the deadline, but he needs to do something between a tweak and a change for the Leafs to be really competitive.
I got to tell you, Justin, Sportsnet 650. Out here in Vancouver, we listen to you every afternoon. It's the second best talk show in this market next to ours. But you've got fans out here, Justin, and we want to get you back on again. Thanks so much for this.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for having me on. You guys do great work too.
Thanks.